Hello, everybody. We're back with another edition of Quarantine Questions. And this week I got my good friend, Adam LaRoche. Roche, welcome.
Yeah, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Hey, I appreciate you being here and look forward to talking with you a little bit on Quarantine Questions. You and I have been on the opposite side of the field quite a bit in our baseball career, and you've even hit a couple of home runs off me. So I'm glad to see you in this context. But but yeah, we've enjoyed some time since baseball and some hunting trips and some mission work, and really appreciate you and what you stand for and everything that you're involved in. So I look forward to asking you a couple questions about that.
Man, I'm honored to be on here, Scotty. You bet.
Well, why don't you just talk a little bit about where you're at? I see you're in a hotel room.
Yeah, yeah. We got over the whole quarantine thing pretty quick. It's been interesting, man. I live in Southeast Kansas, middle of nowhere, and I almost feel a little guilty that we haven't been affected a whole lot there. You know what I mean? Especially, not only our little town, especially where we live out on a ranch. So I think we tend to forget sometimes what's going on out in the world, which can be good. And, yeah, I went to Phoenix. I've got a train here for a few days, and my wife Jen and the kids out. Which both my kids are older now. I just had one. My son graduated, and my daughter is going to be a senior. So basically, got 4 adults out here together. But it's been great. It's good to get them out and do a little recharge.
Great. Well, you've been involved a lot in some mission work. I mentioned, I know that you're heavily involved with anti-trafficking ministries, and some of that training that you're out there for right now might be related to that. But I'd love for you to share just how you got involved with that, why your heart burns for girls in particular that are being trafficked, and what that looks like.
Yeah, man. And for the sake of time, I'll give you the really short version, but it was sometime back, I think 2014, when I got introduced to trafficking. Because to be honest, I didn't even know what the word meant before then. Fast forward 6 months or so, and I ended up going to Thailand with a friend of mine that had a group out there that was doing some mission work in the counter-sex trafficking world, and just had my eyes open and heart broke really for what I had seen. And at that time, and even when I came home, I still thought this was just a third world issue. Not that it made it any less heartbreaking or severe, but really didn't cross my mind that it could be in our own country. So I kind of made it a mission to fly around, drive around, meet with as many both government and non-government groups that were involved in counter-sex trafficking to learn more about it. And that's when it was brought to my attention that this is happening all over the place in the U.S. And now, the more years that I've been involved, I would say now undoubtedly that it's happening in every county in the U.S. As rural as some of them might be, I'm just blown away at the numbers, and really at the rising numbers too, and how popular this has become amongst some criminal networks and groups out there that are preying on the vulnerable.
Well, I know you get in some pretty tight situations too. You mentioned you've got the law enforcement working alongside you, and I would imagine that there are some situations that get pretty tense. I'm going to flash a picture up of one of your recent rescues, and I'd ask you just to tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah. And I'm glad, and I'm glad, Scotty, you bring up the law enforcement piece, because I can't tell you how important that is in really the global effort on counter-sex trafficking. I haven't been involved with any group yet that has been effectively been able to go hunt and extract these girls without the majority of that coming from law enforcement. So after I retired in 60, I went to police academy to become a deputy in Bourbon County. And one thing that's been really neat about that is that I didn't even realize at the time was that, one, it allows me when I travel now to kind of attach with other task force and law enforcement agencies to help out. But also I've kind of become almost like a liaison between law enforcement and the nonprofits. A lot of them out there doing phenomenal work. Some of them out there with the best intentions and great hearts, but in some ways can make it tougher on law enforcement. So I think, there's probably some frayed relations there over the years that I've kind of been able to come in under the umbrella of both being deputized and also being a part of some of these groups that work on the nonprofit side and just make that connection. And this is actually a great example. We had law enforcement was involved in it, and they were kind of at a dead end as far as what they could do because of their tasks and their workload and the time frame that we had. So this was one of those that was not unique in the aspect that this young lady here was preyed on through social media. And, we watched the movies Taken and some of these where they do the old, the gag and bag and like truly kidnap them. And I would say that's extremely rare, especially in the United States. For the most part, this is a long, really purposeful process by these traffickers to really go into the world of the foster care systems, of just the young girls that are oppressed. They do a lot of homework when they go to locate like these girls that they're going to target, and then typically that's slowly done through social media. And they're thinking they've hit the jackpot, right? They've met this guy online, good looking, college age, whatever, young man that promises the world to them. And he may go on some dates. It may be legit for a minute, and that's just kind of the recruiting process, that gets them in some really bad situations. And we don't need to use up all the time going into detail there, but that was a good example of a girl that just kind of fell into that, and she ended up outside of our country. Unfortunately, I had a friend with a plane that allowed us to go down there, and again with law enforcement fully involved, and go help out with that extraction. So just a huge blessing the way it worked out. And then to follow up, I think 2 months later with her mom saying that she had been saved. And like through this whole process and getting to work with us a little bit, and some of the females we get to work with, just loving on her and making her feel loved and welcomed, and telling her about her true father and his feelings, his love towards her. She ended up giving her life to Jesus, a couple months later. So and that's where those are the best parts of the stories, right? And from the water mission side, it's awesome going down there and building the facilities and getting everything, but then to hear the impact it's had 2 months later or 2 years later is the reminder of why you do it, right? And so when I get to hear these really cool stories of a lot of resources and a lot of people involved for one young girl. So you can easily look at that, maybe look at the finances or the numbers or the time spent. Man, is that really worth it? Well, when you get to see it and watch them come out, the other side, in her case now, eternally saved is just, it's crazy. So yeah, I love it. I wish all the stories were like that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're not. Some of these girls are just the psychological side and the amount of time it takes for them to recover can be a process.
Well, you bring up Water Mission, and I'm gonna go to that for a minute here, because your family is a wonderful partner of Water Mission. Y'all have actually partnered with us on a big project down in Haiti to bring safe water to an entire community. Could you just share a little bit about why that kind of work is important to your family as well, and why you chose to get involved?
Man, I'm sure, honestly, I don't even remember. I'm sure I was introduced through you, just knowing you forever and your heart for this stuff. And then when you got involved with Water Mission, I've got to hear about it a couple times at PAO and just kind of the updates on the work you guys are doing. But man, really, I think my heart and passion has always been of one, helping bring justice to those that don't have a voice, but also just helping to serve the oppressed and those that um, have no other way out of the trafficking system or the trafficking world if they don't have somebody come in on their behalf. Have no other way to get clean water, and are going to continue to be abused or put themselves in dangerous situations to go find it unless somebody like you comes in, to give that to them. So yeah, I mean, you can almost look at it like, well, it's clean water and sex trafficking are on totally different, opposite spectrums. I would say they're closely connected, and that we're both just trying to serve the vulnerable communities that get preyed on constantly, and not just in Haiti or the Philippines or Thailand, but right here, right here at home, wherever you're at, it's going on. So yeah, it was an easy one, but to be honest with you, to get involved with, and just proud of the work you're doing, and love hearing the updates.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you too. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a lesson I think that I've only learned recently, just about, you mentioned the vulnerability of these communities. And when you don't have something like water, like food, some of these basic needs, communities really put themselves at risk because someone comes along, like the gentleman you mentioned earlier, offering them a better life, a better chance at quality, and they're able to exploit them because they don't have access to basic needs. I never made that transition or that connection in my mind. But I was on a trip to Haiti recently where we went to one of these communities that was serving kids who were caught up in trafficking, and we were putting in a water system. And that's the exact thing that they told us, is that's why these kids are able to be trafficked, is because families are forced to make some horrible decisions that we can't even imagine, because they got to choose between taking care of 8 kids versus maybe, giving up on one.
That's right.
It's terrible.
That's right. Yeah, man. And I'll get some feedback on occasion, I guess a little bit negative in the way that, oh, so you're not going in there and preaching to these girls. So you're not going in there and handing out Bibles and sharing the story of Jesus with these girls. And absolutely, that's the end goal. But I guess you got to see it to understand it. But there's a lot of times when you have to save their physical life before you can begin to save their eternal life, right? And I'm sure it's the same with clean water. Like, that's step one in gaining that trust. Show them that you can go in there and do something out of love and not expect anything, in return. And I think it's a great example that we can show the love of Jesus without having the Bible in hand and going through Scripture, right? We can do it, and Jesus talks about that. What is it? Your love will be known by the way you treat one another, right? Or something like that. I don't even know what verse it is, but it's just, the way you present yourself, that will overflow, and people will see me. People will see Jesus through that. And I just, I want that constant reminder, because I've also went through a period, and still probably do, where I was, I'm asking God, why do you allow these things to happen? Why do you allow these things to happen to young girls or young boys? And it's been a couple years, but I almost felt him saying and heard him saying, like, man, I'm tired of getting blamed for this. Why do you allow this to happen?
Wow.
Like, you're just going to sit there in the comfort of your ranch in Kansas and your, fenced in bubble where there's protection and get on me? Like, how about you go out and do something about it? So I think we try to justify to ourselves, well, man, what if this happens? What if that happens? Or, one day when my kids graduate, one day when I get some more money, then maybe I can start these things. And I would argue that, what if you don't do it? What is that conversation going to look like at the end when we stand before the King? I don't know that he's really going to care about your finances or your comforts or, our own agenda. So, and I'm speaking to myself here too. I always want that reminder that sometimes he's saying, hey, go get uncomfortable, right? Go out there and get uncomfortable. We pray for faith, and all of us want faith, and we want our faith to be strengthened. And in my experience, the only way to get that is to put yourself in situations where you got to rely on your faith. Mm-hmm. I think we can pray all we want for faith. I think he's saying, hey, go get uncomfortable for a minute. Go get in a spot where you have to rely on your faith and watch it grow.
What you just said reminds me of Micah 6:8, and where it says, do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly. And that first one, you talked about justice, and we know that God is about justice, and he wants his people to be about justice. But what does he say? He says, do justly. It's not about speak justly or, represent justly, but get out there and do it. Be a man of action. That's exactly what you said.
That's right. That's right, man. I actually got one written down here, Isaiah 1. Learn to do good, seek justice, help the oppressed, defend the cause of the orphans, and fight for the rights of the widows. I mean, it's and no different from what you were talking about. And I think, Micah, God is giving us permission to be men of action, men and women of action. Yeah. Absolutely. He wants us to be in the Word and build ourselves up to be able to go out into the darkness and be in constant prayer and communication with him. But sometimes you got to go get something done. Mm-hmm. Whether you're completely prepared for it, we're never going to be. We're never going to be completely prepared for what he's asking us to do. And that's where I think that growth and that faith is just, that's when it takes off.
But yet he equips us, right, for every good endeavor. And he gives us exactly what we need to do it. But that's the great thing about the Christian walk, is that we get to walk with him knowing that he's going to prepare us for whatever we're tasked to do.
I agree, man. And I've walked on both sides. I've walked as a so-called Christian, right, but with zero faith, and also not a whole lot of freedom, and didn't know it at the time. But I'm loving kind of this new life of really ultimate freedom, to go out and trust that he will equip. But usually it's not when we're leaving the front door, right? We still feel unequipped. A lot of times that equipping comes when we've taken the steps, and we're moving into, and then he's just there. It just happens.
Good point. So, yeah. Takes that step of faith first.
It does. It does. I wish it didn't. It'd be way easier. I'd be way more comfortable if it didn't, but not our not our design and our plan all the time.
Yeah. Roche, man, I feel like this conversation could go on for a while, but I really appreciate the time. I know you got to get back to your training there. One of the ways I know he's equipping you to do your next trafficking endeavor is he's teaching you how to do a J-turn. So maybe next time I'm in a car with you, you can show me what you learned out there.
I'll try to get some video for you. It'll be pretty amusing.
Well, again, I really appreciate it. You were an all-star on the field, but you're a water mission all-star too. I don't know if you know that, but really appreciate what you and your family have done.
Man, thanks for inviting me on, buddy. Been Absolutely. Really cool. Keep it up.
God bless you.
All right, brother. You too.